Another look at the final 12-team college football playoff bracket. We finally have our hands on it. Now we're going to do our best to fill it out and say what we believe is going to happen, starting with the game at 4 o'clock Eastern, December 21st on Saturday. Clemson versus Texas, the 12-5 game for the right to play Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. Danny, who you got?
So, we made a lot about top 25 wins. Do you know how many top 25 wins Texas has against current top 25? It is a big, fat 0. I'm going to go with the upset. I think there's something about Clemson.
Upset in the first game. I love it.
I'm telling you,
look at this aura. Look at the aura.
Dabo Swinney's already called his shot. He said we were the first team to run the table in the 4-team playoff. We'll be the first one to win a title with 3 losses in this one. They are playing with house money. They are so loose. I thought their defense, I think, can stack up well against Texas. Cade Klubnik has been playing a lot more confidence. I think Clemson can pull off the upset.
Do you have any idea how high the off-the-rails potential is here? You got Dabo on the same field as Matthew McConaughey. You've got them as an underdog, which is like oxygen to Clemson and Dabo Swinney. And you've got a Texas team that went into this Georgia game yesterday with the lead against the opponent's backup, having quadruply outgained Georgia in the first half, somehow found the way not to win that game. There's this click that's missing with Texas's offense. And if that's the case again, and Clemson hits a few explosive plays, that's what it takes to win. I'm telling you, someone just needs to pretend like Clemson's favored. Because if you send them into Austin and you tell them it's you against the world, we've seen that movie. We've seen that movie play out too many times. Having said that, Texas is going to win that game.
Okay, I was going to say, did you hear a pick? I didn't hear that.
Texas is
going to. Okay, so we're already split on the first game. That's what makes this so exciting. Again, this game is at Texas. They're currently 11.5-point favorites, and it's the first meeting between these two teams ever. Let's continue to move down in the bracket. We've got Tennessee at Ohio State. We'll start with you on this one. Who wins the game, Pate?
Look, I stood boldly and proudly on a mountaintop in August and said, this is the year that Ryan Day just rids himself of the fog. And it's not been a great December. It's been a long December. But I still look at the way that this lays out, and I can't quit them.
Okay.
Some of their own fans have quit them, but I cannot quit them. So that's a little tease for where I think the bracket's going. Earmuffs, I'm going to take Ohio State to beat Tennessee, and that would send them to not a Big Ten championship game rematch, but a week 4, week 5, whatever it was, rematch. And we're looking at it right now in living color, only this wouldn't be in Autzen Stadium where they lost by 1 point. This would be at a neutral site, somewhere in a sterilized NFL environment. Yeah. Well, actually, never mind. I take that back. I've got extreme deference for the Rose Bowl. So any other neutral site, I'll hate on it. The Rose Bowl, I love it. Every time I go, I try to rip up some sod and take home with me.
I so bad want to call another upset for you, Emily, for your balls.
Please do it, Danny.
It depends on what version of Nico do you get. Like, if he gets hot and plays like he did down the stretch, well, that too. I also think their defense could travel. Here's the thing I will say about it. I'll make the pick for Ohio State, but my goodness, they better get off to a strong start, because we could have a playoff game, a home playoff game, where you're supposed to have the home field advantage, where if you get 2 3-and-outs or you get a Will Howard interception, they'll be booing. And they'll be booing Ryan Day. They'll be booing the Buckeyes. And that is not the healthiest environment to get to, because that stress starts to build. And then you're the opponent. You're on the road. You're like, oh, these guys are getting booed by their own fans. Then all of a sudden, your confidence starts to build. I think they overcome it. I still think they're a dangerous team. So I'll stick with Ohio State. But I think I kind of like Tennessee with the points.
I almost wonder, now that you say that, and you're right about that, there's no more toxic feeling place when things go bad than a high expectation Ohio State crowd that is let down. There is a world where if I'm Ohio State, I would rather get out of there and go on the road. I don't know if Neyland, I don't know if Neyland's the place I want to go, but there is a world where I'd say, just get me out of here, man. Columbus, Ohio is not where I want to be right now. Next time I show up here, I want to have a championship trophy in my hand. If they lose that game, having lost the Michigan game, I don't know how you avoid the conversation about Ryan Day just like going off the rails. And at that point, someone like me sits there, I try and be pragmatic about it. I try and be reasonable about it. There will be no room in the room for that if they lose at home. Because this is what happens now. You lose the Michigan game, it used to be your season was over. You just skip over Indy and you get a home playoff game now. If you drop the ball on that too as a touchdown plus favorite, God be with you.
Yeah, for Ohio State fans, it felt like the season was over, but as a reminder, it obviously is not over. They still could have plenty of football left to play. Speaking of Big Ten head coaches who have a little bit of pressure on them. Let's go to our next game with SMU at Penn State. We discussed this earlier on in the show. Josh Pate believes that there's a lot of pressure on James Franklin to maybe run the table and get there to the national championship, but first they got to go through the ponies here.
Yeah, let's just make sure we understand there's pressure on everybody because it's high-level college football, but it's disproportionate on teams like this in spots like this because for a long time Penn State's been pretty good to really good. There hasn't been greatness there. I always scoff when people call James Franklin and Penn State overrated because they're not overrated. They're properly rated. No one thinks they're elite. People think they're pretty good. They're always in the 5 to 10 range. Well, that now lands you a playoff. And it lands you a home game. And just because the format is as whacked out as it is, you get SMU sent to you. And you are in a position where you outman them, you should beat them. And you played Oregon really hard last night as we're talking. It's Sunday. I'm going to pick Penn State here. There's this weird part of me, Danny, that watched them lose last night. And I, in some weird way, am more confident about them than I would be if they won a 13-9 game where Oregon was -3 turnovers. Like in that scenario, they would have won the Big Ten title. But I wouldn't think any differently about Penn State. Last night, they were forced to play catch-up. Drew Aller's forced to throw the ball. They have 2 100-plus yard rushers. Dylan Gabriel got the better of them. There aren't many Dylan Gabriels out there. All due respect to even SMU, they don't have a Dylan Gabriel. So I like Penn State in this spot, and I like them to maybe build up momentum and maximize on this new format.
Team from Texas going up to play in Pennsylvania. Cold weather is going to come into play. I think Penn State is built to win multiple ways. If you have to rely on Kevin Jennings to do a little bit more through the air, which I think they will, I think they'll be able to stop Brashard Smith, the running back for SMU. I think that could be too much to overcome. I am very curious to see what Rhett Lashley does, what game plan he does up. He usually finds a way to put up offense on most teams, but I think Penn State will overwhelm them at home.
While we're talking about road environments, Penn State has been dying to do a night game whiteout, and they get the noon kick on Saturday. What do you think about that, Danny?
James Franklin always handles this the right way. I mean, even their last game.
Yeah, you can't complain.
Yeah, it is a playoff game. It is at home. I think all of us wish it was at night. They'll be loud. They'll get it going. It's just not the same. You don't have as much time to get lubricated.
Yeah.
It's graduation week up there. There's some weird scheduling dynamics going on at Penn State.
That's a good thing, right? That'll make it even better, don't you think?
Well,
because it could be an empty campus if kind of classes are out.
It's better than like the fall break game, winter break game, as long as they're still on campus.
One of a million talking points here is home playoff games. Okay, how's your grounds crew get ready? And are your students even still on campus? Like, how's your gate going to look?
Yeah, well, let's hope the Rose Bowl's working on their grounds crew. Sounds like somebody's stealing turf from it. So we got one more game we want to discuss in the first round. Indiana at Notre Dame. We just spoke with the head coach of the Indiana Hoosiers, and Curt Cignetti, and he was so focused on just getting ready to play this Notre Dame game, but he's not here anymore, Danny.
No.
I don't know if he's still watching. I hope he's still watching, Coach. Who wins this game?
The minute we got off air with him, I was trying to open up my FanDuel app to see what the line was, maybe make a play on him. I like Indiana.
Okay.
There's going to be upsets. That's what I keep going. I do not think chalk is going to win out. I'll take the Hoosiers to beat Notre Dame in South Bend. I know Notre Dame, we were talking earlier about who have they beaten. That Texas A&M win, which feels like it was 8 years ago, the first week of the season. I still don't think Texas A&M was that good of a team, and that was with Connor Wigman before they had Marcel Reed. It's a good win, and then where's the next one? Is it Army and Navy? Just because they were top 25, we've talked about the Group of 5 being a different level of competition. Those wins don't resonate as much with me. I'm going to go with Indiana. And the one thing that Curt Cignetti that I forgot about was the 14 points they gifted them in the special teams, and that was big, or else that game could have been an ugly defensive scoring affair. And again, I like teams that have multiple ways they can win. They've shown they can win in shootouts. Their Curtis Warwick and company can get it going, and they can put up big points, or their defense is stout enough. And I'm not sold on Riley Leonard as a passer just yet. I think this will be a lower scoring game. I think Indiana can get it done.
Interested to see the total in this game. It's the game I feel the least confident about if I look across the first round. You're right, though. Inevitably, in a season like this, where there are no elite teams, we'll have upsets. Problem is trying to peg it. So I think a lot of people will hone in on this one, and then Clemson pops Texas out of nowhere and Notre Dame wins by 14. I'm just going to go roster here. I'm going to go Notre Dame. I also think a lot of what I could get in terms of explosivity from Indiana may be neutralized by weather, because you can talk as much as you want to about the fact that we're from Bloomington. You haven't played in this. Like, no one really plays in this all that much. I just think the lean factor in the second half, we're already breaking down halves. I think the lean factor is a little bit too much. I'd take Notre Dame.
So no upsets for you in this first round.
Here's the problem.
You picked two. You picked none.
There will be upsets.
Chalk State.
I know I would rather go 2-2 than 0-4. Trying to find these upsets. That's what I'd rather do.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll get a good look of your bracket here coming up in just a little bit. These guys are working on their